Have you ever felt like your daily energy is just on this uh, invisible roller coaster? You wake up, feel pretty good, productive, and then boom, out of nowhere, you'll crash.
Yeah.
Suddenly you're tired, maybe a bit irritable, craving something sweet, and well, that stubborn weight just doesn't seem to budge, right?
It's incredibly common, and often the sort of silent force pulling the strings behind all that, the cravings, the fatigue, even why our bodies kind of cling to fat, it comes down to something really basic: glucose,
Yeah.
or, blood sugar.
Exactly. And that's why today we're really going to dive deep into what we're calling the glucose code. The mission here is to truly get a handle on how blood sugar affects, well, pretty much everything in your body.
Right. From cravings and fat storage to your mood, even your long-term health prospects.
Yeah, the goal is to give you a solid, actionable blueprint, something you can use to stabilize those glucose levels and honestly transform your body from the inside out.
And to do that, we've pulled together some really comprehensive, trusted sources. We're looking at material from the National Institute of Diabetes and Digestive and Kidney Diseases, NIDDK.
Yeah.
That gives us a great scientific base.
Okay.
We've also got key research from Harvard Health Publishing, which frankly lays out the dangers of added sugar pretty starkly. And then some really practical insights from a wellness expert's glucose code program.
Yeah.
Real world stuff.
Actionable strategies.
Exactly. But, just a quick reminder, this is all for general educational info. If you have specific health conditions, definitely talk to your own qualified healthcare professional.
Absolutely. So to really crack this code, we kind of need to start at square one, understand the body system first. So let's begin there. What is glucose fundamentally, and how's it supposed to work?
Okay, so glucose is basically sugar. It's what we get mainly from the carbohydrates in our food. And it's the #1 fuel source for every single cell in your body.
The primary fuel.
The primary fuel. When you eat carbs, that glucose hits your bloodstream and naturally your blood sugar levels go up.
So once it's in the blood, how does the body actually, get it to where it needs to go? How does it use it?
Right, that's where insulin steps in. Your pancreas releases this hormone, insulin, and it acts like a key. It unlocks your cells so the glucose can move out of the bloodstream and get inside.
Ah, okay.
Once inside, it's either used right away for energy or your body stores it for later use. When everything's balanced, it's a really elegant system. Works beautifully.
Sounds perfect on paper. But clearly, for a lot of us, it's not always running that smoothly. So what throws this balance off? What disrupts it?
Well, that's when you hop on that glucose roller coaster, as we call it.
Yeah.
The problem often kicks off when we eat certain things, especially foods that are highly processed, packed with sugar, or full of refined carbs, particularly if you eat them alone.
Like a big bowl of sugary cereal first thing.
Exactly. Or, a candy bar on an empty stomach. That kind of thing can cause your blood sugar to spike really dramatically, really fast.
And the body reacts to that spike.
Right.
Tries to fix it.
It does. It overreacts often. Your pancreas pumps out a whole lot of insulin to deal with that sudden flood of glucose. But then the consequence of that overcorrection
Is the crash.
Exactly. A rapid drop in blood sugar. And the symptoms are just what you described earlier. Feeling tired, irritable, maybe shaky, a little brain fog even. And critically, what does your body scream for then? More sugar or carbs to get that energy back up quickly. So you just perpetuate the cycle.
So if you keep doing that day after day, riding this roller coaster,
Yeah.
what's the long-term damage? What happens to our cells?
Well, over time, with these constant spikes and crashes, your cells start to become less sensitive to that insulin signal. It's like the locks get a bit rusty, the key doesn't work quite as well.
Okay.
Their receptors just become less responsive. And this reduced sensitivity, that's what we call insulin resistance. And this is really, really crucial because insulin resistance is a major step on the road towards type 2 diabetes.
Okay, so that leads us to prediabetes, which, as I understand it, is when blood glucose levels are higher than they should be, but not quite high enough yet for a type 2 diagnosis.
That's precisely it. And the numbers here are frankly staggering. Back in 2021, it was estimated that around 97.6 million adults in the U.S., people 18 and older, had prediabetes.
Wow, 97 million. That's huge.
It's nearly a third of the adult population. And the really unsettling part, most people walking around with insulin resistance or prediabetes have absolutely no idea.
Because there aren't obvious symptoms.
Exactly. There usually aren't any clear symptoms, so it's often this silent condition just quietly progressing in the background.
Which makes understanding its impact, even if you feel fine, so important. Let's connect it to the bigger health picture. Weight management is a big one for so many people listening. How does this glucose dysregulation actually lead to weight gain, especially that stubborn belly fat?
Right. So when your insulin levels are consistently high because you're having these frequent glucose spikes, it's like your body's fat storage switch gets jammed in the on position. Insulin is a storage hormone. It tells your body, hey, we've got extra energy here, store it. And it preferentially converts that excess glucose into fat, especially that visceral fat, the deep stuff around your organs in your belly.
Which is considered the more dangerous type of fat, right?
Literally, it's metabolically active and linked to more health problems. And this isn't just about calories in, calories out. It's a powerful hormonal signal driving fat storage.
And what about the cravings? Does it fuel those too? Because that crash makes you feel starving, doesn't it?
Absolutely. That glucose crash sends urgent signals to your brain. Need energy, and now. And that translates into intense cravings, usually for more fast-acting carbs and sugars. So you feel hungry all the time, making it way harder to manage how much you eat.
And you feel tired too.
Yeah, because if your cells are resistant to insulin, they're actually struggling to get the glucose inside for energy. So even though there's fuel in your blood, your cells are starved. That leads to sluggishness, low energy, less motivation to be active. It's a whole vicious cycle.
Wow. Okay. And it messes with other hormones too, not just insulin.
It does. Chronic glucose ups and downs can really disrupt key appetite hormones. Leptin, which signals fullness, and ghrelin, the hunger hormone, their balance gets thrown off. This just adds another layer of difficulty to regulating food intake naturally. And then there's inflammation. Those constant blood sugar swings and high insulin levels contribute significantly to chronic low-grade inflammation throughout the body. And inflammation itself is a barrier to weight loss and a driver of many chronic diseases.
So it's this cascade, really, far beyond just gaining weight. What are some of the other major health problems linked to this glucose roller coaster, things people might not immediately connect to sugar?
Well, the most obvious progression is to type 2 diabetes itself, which, as you know, can impact nearly every organ system: heart, eyes, kidneys, nerves.
Yeah.
But even before that, or alongside it, this dysregulation increases the risk for high blood pressure, for metabolic syndrome, that cluster of conditions like high blood pressure, high blood sugar, unhealthy cholesterol levels, and excess belly fat that dramatically ups your risk for heart disease, stroke, and diabetes.
Okay.
Also, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, or AFLD, you might also hear it called MASLD now, reflecting its metabolic roots, obesity itself, of course. And unhealthy levels of cholesterol and triglycerides are all part of this picture.
It's quite a list. And you mentioned added sugar specifically. It feels really important to draw a line between, say, the sugar in an apple and the sugar in a soda.
Absolutely. Critical distinction. Natural sugars that come packaged in whole foods, fruits, vegetables, even dairy, they come along with fiber, water, vitamins, minerals. Your body digests them more slowly.
Right.
This leads to a much steadier release of energy. And those whole foods actually reduce your risk of chronic diseases. The real trouble starts with added sugars, the ones manufacturers put into foods during processing.
And where are these added sugars hiding? It's not just the obvious stuff like cookies and candy, is it?
Not at all. I mean, yes, soft drinks, fruit drinks, candy, cakes, they're major culprits, but added sugar lurks in so many processed foods you wouldn't suspect. Things like soups, bread, ketchup, salad dressings, cured meats, flavored yogurts. The list goes on.
It's pervasive.
It really is. Get this. The average adult man in the U.S. consumes something like 24 teaspoons of added sugar per day.
24 teaspoons.
Yeah, that's about 384 calories just from added sugar.
Wow. That's a lot more than I would have guessed. And the impact on heart health specifically, that seems particularly worrying.
It is. There's strong research linking high intake of added sugar directly to a greater risk of dying from heart disease. One big study, for instance, found people getting 17 to 21% of their daily calories from added sugar had a 38% higher risk of dying from cardiovascular disease compared to those who kept it around 8%.
38% higher risk. That's significant. How exactly does the sugar hurt the heart? What's the mechanism?
It's actually multifaceted. One major way is how it affects the liver. It's kind of startling, but overloading your liver with too much sugar, especially fructose, acts similarly to alcohol.
Really?
Yeah. It forces the liver to convert those excess carbs into fat. This can lead directly to fatty liver disease, which we now know is a major contributor to both diabetes and heart disease risk.
Oh.
Plus, high sugar intake can raise blood pressure, increase chronic inflammation, both bad news for your heart. And it contributes to weight gain, especially sugary drinks, because those liquid calories just don't register as filling in the same way, messing with your appetite control.
Okay, so given all these risks and the fact that pre-diabetes is often silent, who should be most concerned? Who's more likely to develop insulin resistance or pre-diabetes?
There are definitely some clear risk factors. Having overweight or obesity, particularly with a larger waist size, is a big one. Age is another risk increases after age 35, though importantly, kids and teens aren't immune. Family history of diabetes definitely plays a role. Certain racial and ethnic groups also have a higher risk. African Americans, American Indians, Asian Americans, Hispanics, Latinos, Pacific Islanders.
And lifestyle factors.
Absolutely. Not being physically active is a major risk factor. Smoking too, or even exposure to secondhand smoke.
Okay. Anything else?
Yep.
Other conditions?
Yes. A history of gestational diabetes during pregnancy or giving birth to a larger baby, say over 9 pounds, increases a woman's risk later. Certain medical conditions like PCOS, polycystic ovary syndrome, Cushing's syndrome, acromegaly, sleep apnea, even some viral illnesses like COVID-19 have been linked. And finally, some medications taken over time can increase risk, things like glucocorticoids, certain antipsychotics, and some HIV medications.
That's a comprehensive list. It strikes me that while some things like age or family history you can't change.
Many others you absolutely can. Lifestyle choices make a huge difference here.
Okay, so since it's often silent, how do doctors actually diagnose this? How do they test for prediabetes or figure out insulin resistance?
Well, specific tests for insulin resistance itself are mostly used in research settings, but prediabetes is diagnosed pretty routinely using blood tests.
Okay.
Your doctor might recommend testing if you're 35 or older, or younger if you have overweight or obesity, plus other risk factors we just talked about. For kids who fit that profile, testing often starts around age 10 or when puberty begins.
And what are the names of these tests? What do they measure?
There are a few main ones. The A1C test is very common. It gives an average picture of your blood glucose over the past 3 months or so. A result between 5.7% and 6.4% typically indicates prediabetes.
Okay, A1C. What else?
There's the fasting plasma glucose test, or FPG, that measures your blood sugar level at that specific moment after you've fasted overnight. A reading between 100 and 125 milligrams per deciliter is considered prediabetes.
100 to 125. Got it.
And sometimes, though less common because it takes longer and costs more, they might use an oral glucose tolerance test, the OGTT. That involves checking your blood sugar before and after you drink a sugary drink. For that test, a level between 140 and 199 2 hours after the drink indicates prediabetes.
Right. And they might check other things too, like cholesterol.
Often, yes.
Yeah.
They might check your cholesterol and triglyceride levels as well, since those are often related and part of the overall metabolic picture.
And how often should somebody get tested, say, if they have risk factors but test normal, or if they actually get a prediabetes diagnosis?
Good question. If you have risk factors but your tests are normal, retesting every 3 years or so is often recommended. But if you are diagnosed with prediabetes, the recommendation is usually to get tested for type 2 diabetes every year. Annually. Because the risk of progressing from prediabetes to type 2 diabetes is quite high, often within 5 to 10 years if things don't change. It's a serious warning sign, but also, importantly, a crucial window for intervention.
Okay, which brings us to the really empowering part. How do we prevent this? Or even reverse it if we're already on that path? What are the concrete actions listeners can take?
The foundation is really lifestyle, healthy habits, and managing weight. And the data on this is incredibly encouraging. The Big Diabetes Prevention Program study, the DPP, showed that people at high risk could slash their chance of developing type 2 diabetes significantly by over 50% in some cases, just by losing a modest amount of weight, like 5 to 7% of their starting weight.
Wow, just 5 to 7%. That feels achievable for many people.
It really does. It highlights that small, consistent changes can have a massive impact.
So beyond general weight loss, what about specific strategies that target blood sugar directly? I know we mentioned a 7-pillar strategy earlier from one of our sources. Can we break that down? What are those pillars?
Absolutely. These are practical, evidence-informed tactics that work together. Pillar number 1, start your day with a savory, protein-rich breakfast.
Okay. Ditch the sugary stuff first thing.
Exactly. Forget the cereal, the pastries, the sweetened yogurt. Think eggs, plain Greek yogurt with maybe some berries and nuts, a veggie omelet, maybe even leftover dinner. This sets your blood sugar on a stable path right from the morning, helps curb cravings later, and keeps you feeling full.
Makes total sense. What's pillar number 2?
Always pair your carbs. This is a game changer. The idea is never eat carbohydrates naked or by themselves.
Naked carbs.
Yeah. Always eat them with some protein, healthy fat, or fiber. This dramatically slows down how quickly the glucose from those carbs hits your bloodstream.
So like, instead of just an apple,
Have the apple with a handful of almonds or a slice of cheese or some peanut butter. Instead of plain crackers, have them with hummus or avocado. It makes a huge difference to the glucose response.
that's a really simple, powerful tip.
Mhm.
Okay, what's next?
Number 3, prioritize fiber at every single meal. Fiber is fantastic. It forms a kind of viscous gel in your digestive tract that literally slows down the absorption of glucose.
Like putting the brakes on sugar absorption.
Precisely. So load up on non-starchy vegetables. Think leafy greens, broccoli, peppers. Legumes like beans and lentils are great.
Yeah.
Whole grains, nuts, seeds make fiber a focus.
Got it. Now, I've also heard about apple cider vinegar. Does that actually work for blood sugar?
It really seems to. That's pillar number 4. Incorporate apple cider vinegar, or ACV, before meals. Studies suggest that taking about 1 tablespoon of ACV diluted in water, maybe 10 to 15 minutes before you eat a meal containing carbohydrates, can significantly blunt the glucose spike that follows.
Interesting.
Yeah, it seems to improve insulin sensitivity, too. It's a pretty simple hack with potentially significant benefits. Just make sure it's diluted, don't drink it straight.
Good tip. Okay, so we've eaten our balanced meal, maybe had some ACV beforehand. What about after eating?
That's pillar 5. Move your body after eating. You don't need an intense workout. Just 10 to 15 minutes of light activity, like a gentle walk right after your meal, can work wonders.
How does that help?
Your muscles are major consumers of glucose. When you move them, even gently, they readily pull glucose out of your bloodstream to use for fuel. This helps lower those post-meal blood sugar peaks significantly. It's like giving your body a little reset.
I love how practical these are. Are the last pillars also about food and movement?
The last 2 are crucial but often fly under the radar. Pillar 6, prioritize quality sleep. Skimping on sleep really messes with your hormones, including insulin. Poor sleep impairs insulin sensitivity and can actually raise your glucose levels the very next day.
So aiming for 7 to 9 hours is key.
Absolutely. Consistent restorative sleep is non-negotiable for good metabolic health. And finally, pillar 7, manage your stress.
Yeah, stress, the silent saboteur.
Totally. Chronic stress keeps your cortisol levels high, and cortisol tells your body to release stored glucose into the bloodstream. Not helpful when you're trying to keep levels stable. So finding healthy ways to cope is vital. Meditation, deep breathing, yoga, spending time in nature, whatever works for you. Incorporate it daily.
Those 7 pillars together sound like a really solid plan. Now, what about when lifestyle changes aren't quite enough? When do medical options come into play?
Well, lifestyle is always the first line, the foundation. But sometimes, yes, medical support is needed. For weight management, certain medications or even bariatric surgery might be considered in specific cases.
And for blood sugar directly.
Metformin is a common medication prescribed to help manage blood glucose levels and reduce the risk of developing type 2 diabetes, especially for those with prediabetes.
Right, that DPP study mentioned metformin too.
It did. It showed metformin could delay the onset of type 2 diabetes, and it seemed particularly effective for certain groups, like women who'd had gestational diabetes, younger adults, and people with obesity. And of course, doctors might prescribe other meds to manage related issues like high blood pressure or high triglycerides.
Okay, and circling back to added sugar one last time, since it's such a big factor, any final practical tips for navigating it day to day? It seems like you really need to be a detective.
You kind of do. The number 1 tip is read food labels diligently. Look beyond just the word sugar. Added sugars hide under dozens of names.
Like what?
Oh, brown sugar, corn sweetener, corn syrup, high fructose corn syrup, fruit juice concentrates, honey, molasses, invert sugar, malt sugar, anything ending in ooze like dextrose, fructose, glucose, lactose, maltose, sucrose. They're all forms of added sugar.
Wow, okay.
And pay attention to the serving size listed on the label and the grams of added sugar per serving. Often a package contains multiple servings, so you need to do the math.
Good point. And drinks are a big trap, you said.
Huge. About half of the added sugar many people consume comes just from beverages. That includes sodas, energy drinks, fruit punches, but also sweetened coffees and teas.
Yeah, that fancy coffee drink can pack a punch.
Absolutely. One study found that for people who add sugar or flavorings to their coffee or tea, over 60% of the calories in those drinks came just from the added sugar. The American Heart Association has guidelines. Women aim for no more than 100 calories, about 6 teaspoons or 24 grams of added sugar per day. Men, no more than 150 calories, about 9 teaspoons or 36 grams.
And one can of soda basically wipes out that daily budget, doesn't it?
Pretty much. It really puts it in perspective.
Is there any danger, though, in becoming too strict, like trying to cut out all sugar? Can that backfire?
That's a really important point. Yes, it can backfire. Being overly zealous and trying to eliminate every trace of added sugar might lead you to crave and overcompensate with other things that aren't great either.
Like what?
Like refined starches, white bread, white rice, pasta, which also cause rapid glucose spikes. Or maybe comfort foods high in saturated fat and sodium, which have their own negative health impacts. The goal isn't extreme deprivation. It's making smarter, sustainable choices most of the time. Balance is key.
This has been incredibly insightful. It really feels like understanding and applying these strategies, it's not just another diet. It's more like re-educating your body.
That's a great way to put it.
Teaching it to burn fat efficiently again, getting rid of those nagging cravings, having stable energy, feeling better mood-wise, and yeah, significantly lowering your risk for some major chronic diseases down the line. It feels like genuine food freedom, sustainable wellness.
It really is about empowering yourself, understanding your own body's signals, and learning how to work with your internal chemistry instead of constantly fighting against it.
So here's a final thought for everyone listening. Considering just how deeply glucose impacts everything, from your energy right now to your heart health years from now, what's one tiny shift you could make in your daily routine? One small change that might ripple out and create a really significant positive impact on your well-being.
Yeah, what's one small glucose stabilizing step that you feel kind of excited to try first? Maybe it really is just switching to that savory breakfast tomorrow morning, or remembering to pair your carbs at lunch, or maybe just taking a short, gentle walk after dinner tonight. Just pick one small thing to start with, something to think about.